congratulate Kevin and Dr. Murphy for getting us here. Can one person make a difference? And the answer is absolutely yes. Kevin came with this crazy idea that looks very similar to this syllabus about a year ago. And so I kind of pawned them off on Dr. Cummings and some others. And ultimately, we came to the understanding that this is important information. Let's turn it into the seminar. And Dr. Murphy latched onto that, and so congratulations for that. I think that's absolutely marvelous. A while back, I was called by some of the faculty at Kansas State, and they were hiring a new assistant professor. And the search committee said, what is the #1 attribute you would look for in a new faculty person? And I didn't even hesitate. I said, entrepreneurial spirit. The day and age of people coming into a university, and you're rewarded with a big office and lots of startup money and travel money and a plethora of graduate students and all of this stuff, probably unless you go to a very well-established private school like Harvard or Yale, and even they're having troubles, is going to happen. And I truly look for that attribute in the people that we hire as well. I've got a couple things to focus on that, but before I do, how many people are trying to earn their master's degree? Raise your hand. Okay. And how many people are trying to earn their PhD or EDD, a doctoral degree? Okay. And so about a split. In some ways, I may be the best person on the planet to be the department head. And in other ways, I may not be. When you were in high school, and then in college as an undergraduate, how did you pay for that college? Just don't need to answer that, but think about that. Did you get a job? Mom and dad took care of it? Those kind of things. I showed sheep professionally. I was a show jockey. I made so much money, I didn't know what to do with it. I'm dead serious. I had 8 different flocks I was showing. And one year I bought my dad a pickup. I put one of my sisters through college that year, plus myself. How many of you people have ever not had a paycheck? I mean, you were basically homeless unless you made your own money. Yeah, a couple of you. I did too. It's called being a farmer and a rancher. For those who don't know, for about 7 years when I was in my 20s and early 30s, I was a farmer rancher in Montana. No paycheck. There's no Social Security. There's no anything unless you do it. And so it just makes sense to me, the whole entrepreneurial thing. So while I was at Arizona, I was an assistant dean, and I was asked to go to a meeting in California and to meet the chancellor of the California system. And so in his talk, I remember this to this day, he was talking about how the budget, the California budget that went to education, to higher education, to the university system, had gone, and it was a pretty big percentage. It was maybe 8 or 9% of the whole state budget, to when he took over as chancellor, to being maybe 2.5 or 3%. And this is over the course of a decade or so. The same kind of thing is happening here, obviously. And so in talking about budgets, when you're sitting in the chairs you're sitting in, except for probably Dr. Pryor's and Dr. Murphy, you may have this idea that you get a budget to run the department. Well, this is a little spreadsheet that just has only 17 of my budget lines. We have about 40. Most of those are absolutely controlled by the Dr. Bryers and the Dr. Murphys. In other words, I'll put it this way, the harder they work, the better we look. We have 4 of these budget lines that actually come from the university. And those 4 is what happened this last year in the budget reduction. $500,000, $500,000 was cut from those 4 lines. And so you guys tell me if I'm lying, but in department meetings, faculty meetings, what I tell the faculty is our future is completely in our control. You've heard that probably too many times, but it absolutely is. There's some of these budget columns here that we have absolutely 100% control over. And there's 4 or 5 of them that are in the 6 figures. And that's because we have amazing, hard-working faculty. We have faculty who come to work and work hard. And actually, we've done amazing in increasing some of these budget lines so that you can be here. Because the bigger this one is, the more graduate students we can hire. And so there's some of that at play here. As we talk about the entrepreneurial spirit and budgets, I want you to write down any questions, especially if the way things work in this world, there's a lot of noise out there. If you've heard some noise and you want to talk about it or ask some questions, we have 2 folks there that'll make sure I'm not lying to you, and we will answer about anything that we can. So I've said, if I was looking at any of you as a possible candidate, I'd want to know what kind of entrepreneurial background you have, entrepreneurial spirit, those kind of things. But here's what I want you to tell me. When it comes down to being hired or not, I want the next person I hire to say, Dr. Elliot, what is it that I can do to help this department move forward? Versus, and I've had this recently, and those folks never got hired. Okay, what is it I have to do if I'm hired? And I'm serious. I've had folks, it's kind of, what's the minimum I have to do if I'm hired? What do I have to teach? What do I have to research? In today's world, you need people in the workplace, especially at the university, who understand that the day and age, and I don't know if it really ever was that, Dr. Briers, but there's this myth that things were always wonderful 10 or 20 years ago, and there's always been issues. The issues we face right now are real simple. Desiree, if I hired you, the control of the future of the department would be in your hands. And so, as we look at the future of the department, it's rosy. We can do some amazing things. We're on the cusp of some major initiatives. We actually, maybe for the first time, and Dr. Briers, you help me if I'm saying this wrong, we actually had a couple faculty who went up and had a meeting with one of the deans in research about patenting something that's on the scale of what Florida did with Gatorade. And if it happens, I shouldn't say if, when it happens, because it's being vetted through the system now, this department will need a bigger room for seminar. Because one of the things I strongly believe in is the power of what we can do in ag leadership, education, and communications. When you look at any other department, and Dr. Briers again can attest to this, in a message I sent to the executive dean this week, I said the value of ag ed, broadly defined, is we have always been able to bridge the hard sciences with the soft sciences. And we're doing that better today than we ever have. And so that's a pretty positive thing. I'm going to take a little deep breath right now and ask if there are any burning questions. Kevin gave me a couple yesterday when he came in to talk to me, but I want to see if you have any burning questions as it relates to the department, the vision of where we're going, and how we're getting there. And I'll ask ask anybody but Kevin to start with, because I know he has his list. So, any questions that we can address? Yes?
With the budget cuts for future graduate students, are they mostly going to be on soft money? So is it going to be up to the professor to get grants to be able to fund their graduate students? Or what's kind of the future of that in the department?
Repeat the first part of that, because that didn't make sense to me.
With the budget cuts that we've had, and I know like
Okay.
and the assistantships and stuff, will it be up to the professors themselves to obtain grant money to fund their graduate assistants, or?
There's, interestingly enough, that could be, oh, here, sorry. Did you guys hear the question over here? Mm-hmm. So, in many cases, that's always been the case. The harder we work as professors, the more grad students can be in there. Dr. Murphy and I angst over this budget cut an awful lot. There were those when we were looking at the numbers that said, well, the easy thing is to get rid of this $100,000 that's committed to graduate studies. But let me do a little magical math with you. This is approximately plus or minus a few thousand, what we get from the college. But what I had Dr. Murphy do the last year was find out what's the real number. Because for every dollar that we get, our actual GTA budget is about $500,000. So we take those dollars that we get from the college, and through other incentives, IEF funds, grant dollars, all this other stuff, this is basically our payroll. Again, plus or minus a few thousand for all of you. And so the answer is we really try to protect this, because anybody in any business would say, yeah, you get a 5-to-1 on your investment. At the end of the day, Dr. Murphy and I said, we're going to do cuts in other places because this is the biggest bang for our buck. And that's pretty important. You can't make these kind of decisions unless you have hard and fast data. And so Dr. Murphy had to spend probably more time than he wanted to, but he put this together, and it was impressive when we looked at that. Who knows what the next cuts are going to be? If you have any influence in your home communities, especially if you're from Texas, you need to talk to your neighbors, your legislators, those kind of folks, in terms of if you think you're getting a value from your education here. If you're okay with what you've seen happen with the budget cuts and the reductions. We had to, I think I had to RIF 7 people last year. That's not real fun. But we protected the grad students. So that was, if they whack us again, I don't know. We really need to protect that.
Yeah. We won't start eating our seed corn first. We'll eat our seed corn last. But eventually you do have to eat all the corn available. The seed corn will just be the last corn we eat.
There's another part to this. How do we get this other $400,000? And it's through the hard work of the faculty. And so if we want this to happen, there has to be incentives in there. And so we have a very intricate merit system with about 32 variables in it. And 2 of the most important variables are grant dollars and publication rates. And that's why, for those folks that have seen me do this before, that's why I say it. You need to help, if you're a master's student, with 3 publications before you graduate. If you're a PhD student, you need to help your advisor with at least 5. Now those can be, and you'll learn more about that, those can be posters and conference proceedings and whatnot. But we should get some journal articles out of that. That's part of our currency to stay in business. But that can be enhanced. That can enhance other grants and those kind of things. Our grantsmanship, submission of grants, has just gone like this in the last 2 years. If you are a PhD student and aren't working on a grant right now, a grant proposal, proposal, you go into your advisor and say, I want to be part of the game. I want to get on it. I want to help you write a grant. And if your advisor is too busy or doesn't want to do it, then talk to Dr. Murphy and he will get you to the people that are doing that. Because that's going to get more of us in. And that's the entrepreneurial kind of spirit. Who else has a question? Am I off base?
No, that's funny
I hear
because
you say
when you asked that question, and as he started to answer it, I was writing down here. It's not just the hard work of the faculty; it's also the hard work of graduate students coming up with ideas and potential sources, etc. Who go to the. I can't believe that. I actually wrote it down, and then Dr. Elliot says that, so I would just amen that. And we can give specific examples of where graduate students have come to a faculty member and said, hey, look, I saw this potential grant source. Have you seen that? Would you be interested in that? Dang, would I be? Hey, let's get on it. And so...
And here's part of the philosophical part of this. Do not ever think that we are chasing dollars. What we are doing is enhancing our scholarship. And if somebody is saying, I've got to do this grant to get promoted because Elliot says, then they don't get it. What I'm saying is here's your day. Your day is scholarship as a faculty person. Scholarship in research, scholarship in teaching, scholarship in service. And this should go up. And you become a facilitator, a manager. Much like in hard scientists, you hear of these guys having their labs. They don't do the work. They don't do the gene ripping. They have somebody in the lab who's the lab manager, and they have a hierarchy. The senior level PhDs help train the masters and the beginning PhDs, and it kind of goes like that. And that's what we're neophytes in that arena. We have some of our folks who are much better than others. What other questions do you have? Is that what you got into when you want to get your PhD? That's kind of
Let me ask one that we talked about the other day.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you were at Arizona that you made not just the salary that Arizona paid you, but you were able to supplement that. And I think maybe the what's in it for me as a student, why do I want to think like an entrepreneur? Why do I want to start doing grants? Why do I want to have some side projects? What's the upside for you?
most places you're going to go anymore, except I think Florida still has 12-month contracts. There's a handful, maybe. But in our profession, most of the time you're going to go, you're going to get a 9 or 10-month contract. Minnesota's that way. Most places are that way. Arizona is on a 9-month contract. In Arizona, they call that an academic contract. You could earn 4 more months of salary. And that was, to me, depending on the year, 45 to 50K more in my pocket. That was in addition to my salary. And I saved it so that those checks came in the summer along with my regular check. Oh, man. When those checks came in, it was so great. I mean, they were big because you only had a few weeks in the summer to get that check. That's huge. Here, you've probably heard some stories about our faculty taking a budget cut. There's some truth to that. There's also the reality of that. Let me do quick math here for you. Let's just say, for example, on a 12-month contract, the faculty person's making $120,000. How much is that a month?
Wow.
$10,000, right? So this on 12 months is $10,000 per month. In In June of 2010, when we were faced at that time with just a $250,000 budget cut, our faculty got together and we brainstormed and we said, you know, really, we had no choice. We had to be having that much money cut. And then later we found out it was $356, and then the extension stuff was $150, so it's around $500,000. In that meeting, I was never so proud of our group as I've ever been, because they said, well, let's take a 1-month pay cut and go to 10 months. So let me do the magical math for you on that. So now, we're at 10 months. This same person, if you take 1 month away of salary, that's $10,000 for that month. This person is now making $110,000. And what's their monthly pay now? What? Yeah. And here is the issue. Our legislators and the Board of Regents just think you got a pay increase. Honest to gosh. Because they look at this. You're getting $11,000 a month.
Huge raise.
Honest to gosh. Am I right, Dr. Murphy?
You're
Dr.
correct.
Byers?
That's how they see
10%
it.
raise.
That's how they see it.
That's how they see it.
There's nothing we can do to argue with them, because they're saying, by golly, you're making 11 grand. You were only making 10 last year. That's great for you, isn't it? Well, the people that went from here to here, you know, they're going, man, that's going to hurt. But now we're at 10. And here's where the entrepreneurial spirit kicks in. If you get an 11th month by grants or some source, all of a sudden, you add this to that, you're at 121. So you, at 11 months, you're making $1,000 more. What happens if you're like Tim Murphy? You've got both your months funded. Going into this next year, he's now at 132. So he's gone from here to there because the guy's an entrepreneur. So in this day and age of budget reduction, we have we're right at half of our faculty have done this. All of our faculty but one person has done this. So everybody got a raise except one person. Every faculty person in the department has got at least their 11th month covered. And that has blown the socks off of our administration because they had this idea, well, Alan can't do that. Well, we've done it. We've done it with spades. We've done it because our faculty are, I contend, the best ag ed group in the world, not just the nation, but in the world. And when we're put up into this, it was a challenge. By golly, we're all here, and half of us are here. Well, how are we doing here?
We've got just
2 minutes. Okay. So, as I pass this handout out, one of the sad things for me as being department head is the vice chancellor doesn't want me teaching. I can do a guest lecture or something. I do make arrangements to have lunch available. Every lunch I have, I'm either in a meeting or with a student. Once in a while I get somebody really great like Kevin, and he takes me to the Rudder Tower, but you don't have to do that. So I'm going to pass these out. These are the dates, and I sure hope that you sign up for something for a lunch. And it could be you, it can be a pair of you. Really no more than 3, because the idea is just for me to get to know you a little bit better and kind of see your wishes and dreams and to help dispel myths and demons and rumors and gossip. Are there any last burning questions before I turn it quickly back over to Kevin for dismissal?
Thank you, Dr. Elliott. One thing we want to touch on briefly is